Good evening. Welcome to the Liberal Union 9/11. Tonight, we open with a high-stakes pivot in the global security landscape, a moment that NATO officials, military strategists, and intelligence agencies across the West have spent years wargaming, yet were still left breathless by its sudden execution. This is a story of a provocation in the Black Sea that has shifted the entire security calculus of the European continent in a matter of mere hours, forcing a fundamental reassessment of what deterrence actually looks like in 2025. What began as a series of subtle indicators, encrypted communication spikes emanating from the Russian Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol, and the quiet nocturnal movement of silent Kilo-class submarines from their berths, quickly spiraled into what the North Atlantic Council now officially describes as an unprecedented and reckless concentration of Russian naval power. The tactical deployment includes not just the usual missile corvettes, but a sophisticated array of guided missile frigates and support vessels carrying the newest generation of hypersonic munitions positioned in a high-readiness strike formation that has not been seen since the earliest, most aggressive days of the 2022 invasion. This was not merely a routine naval exercise designed for domestic Russian television. It was a deliberate, aggressive, multi-domain pressure campaign that saw Russian Su-24 and Su-30 aircraft aggressively painting NATO targets with fire control radar along the sensitive Romanian maritime border. Simultaneously, as these metal-on-metal provocations occurred at sea, a shadow war erupted in the digital realm, with Russian cyber units launching a sophisticated wave of denial of service and wiper malware attacks targeting critical maritime infrastructure and port authority systems in Bulgaria and Turkey. NATO's response has been swift, uncharacteristically direct, and devoid of the usual bureaucratic delay that Moscow has historically exploited. The alliance has moved decisively away from the era of measured diplomatic concern and strongly worded protests toward an active, kinetic, defensive posture. This repositioning includes the immediate deployment of American P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft operating out of Sigonella and Souda Bay, which are now maintaining 24-hour persistent eyes-on coverage of the Russian formation. Below the waves, the stakes are even higher, as Allied nuclear-powered hunter-killer submarines have been moved into secret intercept corridors, their mission clear: to shadow every Russian vessel and ensure that any hostile launch is met with an immediate counter-response. By declaring this situation an explicit and direct threat to the sovereignty of its member states, NATO has effectively signaled that its collective defense mechanisms under Article 5 are now on a hair trigger. This is a monumental shift in language. It is the alliance effectively telling Vladimir Putin that the Black Sea is no longer a gray zone where Russia can bully its neighbors with impunity. NATO is signaling that any attempt to turn these international waters into a private Russian lake, or any effort to permanently and illegally blockade the global grain corridors that feed millions in the global south, will be met with a unified 32-nation military response. The strategic depth of this crisis is further underscored by the mounting internal pressures currently fracturing the halls of the Kremlin. Intelligence reports suggest a deepening rift between military hardliners who are demanding a total scorched earth naval blockade to finally strangle the Ukrainian economy, and the economic pragmatists who are terrified of a total state budget collapse as the cost of the war and the weight of 2025-era sanctions reach a breaking point. Putin is currently walking a tightrope of his own making, balancing the demands of a nationalist base that views the Black Sea as ancestral Russian territory against a military reality that has seen his surface fleet humiliated by a nation without a traditional navy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expertly capitalized on this moment of renewed Western resolve. In a series of late-night addresses, he has masterfully framed the Black Sea conflict not as a localized dispute over maritime boundaries, but as a global battle for food security, international law, and the fundamental right of free navigation. This framing has effectively locked in NATO.
To retreat now would be to admit that the rules-based international order established after 1945 is dead and that the law of the jungle has returned to European waters. As NATO reinforces its eastern flank, integrating the high-tech military capabilities of its newest members, Finland and Sweden, the alliance has undergone a profound transformation. What Moscow once perceived as a paper tiger, divided by energy dependence and internal political squabbles, has morphed into a fully awakened geopolitical giant. This giant is now mapping every Russian command and control node, every logistics hub, and every submarine transit route in real time, using a level of intelligence sharing that was unimaginable just 3 years ago. The current eerie silence coming from the Kremlin tonight suggests a moment of dangerous, high-stakes reassessment. Putin is likely calculating whether to double down on this naval gamble, perhaps by declaring a total exclusion zone that would force a direct confrontation, or to quietly pull his ships back to the safety of the Novorossiysk harbor in the face of an alliance that has finally found its backbone. We are now entering a critical 72-hour window where the decisions made in Brussels, Washington, and Moscow will determine the trajectory of the 21st century. Will this conflict remain a contained, albeit brutal, regional war, or will it erupt into a direct maritime confrontation between nuclear-armed powers? If Russia chooses to test the resolve of Romanian or Bulgarian coastal defenses, they will find that the tripwire has been replaced by a wall of steel. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. The Black Sea is no longer a peripheral theater. It has become the definitive front line of the global struggle between autocracy and the democratic alliance. Beyond the immediate naval positioning, the humanitarian and economic implications are staggering. If the Russian Operation Vengeance-style maneuvers succeed in cutting off the Odessa and Chornomorsk ports, the resulting spike in global wheat and corn prices would trigger a wave of political instability across North Africa and the Middle East, a second Arab Spring that the Kremlin likely views as a useful distraction for the West. However, NATO's unified stance tonight suggests they have finally connected the dots between maritime security in the Black Sea and domestic stability in Paris, London, and Berlin. This is why we see the unprecedented coordination of German and Dutch air defense units moving toward the Romanian border, and why the language coming from the Pentagon has shifted from defensive support to restoring territorial integrity. As we look toward the morning, the question remains whether the Russian military command, already strained by the high attrition rates on the Donbass front, has the stomach for a naval war that would see their remaining prestige sunk in the deep waters of the Black Sea. The Black Sea Fleet, once the pride of the Tsars and the Soviets, is now facing an existential crisis. If they push forward, they risk total annihilation by NATO's superior air and subsurface assets. If they retreat, the image of Russian power is shattered forever. Tonight, the silence in the Kremlin is the sound of a leader who has run out of easy choices. NATO has spoken, Ukraine has stood its ground, and the international community has signaled that the era of looking the other way is over. This story is no longer just about a war in Ukraine. It is about the future of the oceans, the security of our allies, and the ironclad resolve of a world that has decided, finally, that enough is enough. We will be here, monitoring the radar sweeps and the diplomatic cables as the next phase of this historic confrontation unfolds.